Did you know your spice rack might already have something in it that researchers have studied for its connection to fasting blood sugar? And you've probably walked past it 100 times, reaching for the salt instead? I'm Frank. I'm 83. I've been dealing with this number for more than 2 decades, and these days I cook my own meals, season them the way I like, and I don't stand in the kitchen afraid of what my next fasting reading is going to say. That calm didn't come from giving up flavor. If anything, it came from paying closer attention to what was already in my cabinet. For years, I assumed spices were just decoration, something to make chicken taste less like chicken. Nobody ever told me that a few specific ones had real research behind them connected to blood sugar, and definitely nobody explained why that would even matter for a number that shows up before I've eaten a single bite in the morning. So let's deal with that question first, because it's the one that used to confuse me most. If my fasting number is measured before breakfast, how could anything I eat possibly change it? Here's the answer, and it's the piece almost nobody has time to explain at a rushed appointment. Research in endocrinology describes something called the dawn phenomenon. In the early hours before you wake, roughly between 2 and 4 in the morning, your body releases hormones that tell your liver to pour out glucose to fuel your brain for the day ahead. In a body that responds well to insulin, that release gets managed quietly. After 60, with years of built-up insulin resistance, the system meant to catch that glucose often shows up late, or not at all. What you eat during the day, and especially at dinner, shapes how much glucose is sitting around and how efficiently your body can handle that overnight process. That's the bridge between your spice rack and the number you see the next morning. Now, the 3 spices. I'll tell you what the research actually shows, and I'll tell you where I'd put my money if I could only pick one. Spice number 1, cinnamon. This is the one most people have heard of, and for good reason. Research published in a major diabetes journal found that a small daily amount of cinnamon was associated with measurably lower fasting glucose over the course of several weeks in people with type 2 diabetes. The leading theory is that certain compounds in cinnamon may improve how efficiently your cells respond to the insulin you do have circulating, rather than adding more insulin to the mix. Spice number 2, turmeric, specifically the compound in it called curcumin. Research published in the same major diabetes journal followed people at risk for developing diabetes and found that a curcumin supplement over 9 months was associated with a significantly lower rate of progressing to full diabetes compared to those who didn't take it. The mechanism researchers point to is curcumin's effect on inflammation, and chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the threads tied to worsening insulin resistance as we age. Spice number 3, fenugreek. Less familiar to most Americans, but research on fenugreek seed has associated it with improved fasting glucose readings, largely attributed to a specific type of soluble fiber in the seed that slows carbohydrate digestion and absorption in the gut, meaning sugar hits your bloodstream more gradually rather than all at once. 3 spices, real research behind each one. But here's the honest truth. None of them are meant to work as a dusting on top of your food once in a while. The studies behind these used consistent daily amounts over weeks, not an occasional sprinkle. I want to walk through the practical side for a moment, because knowing the research and actually building the habit are 2 different things. Cinnamon is easiest to start with because it goes into almost anything: oatmeal, coffee, even sprinkled over roasted vegetables. Turmeric works best cooked into a dish, since the compound in it, curcumin, is better absorbed when paired with a bit of black pepper and some fat, like olive oil. A detail researchers stumbled onto almost by accident, but that makes a real difference in how much of it your body actually uses. Fenugreek is the least familiar, and honestly, the one I'd suggest easing into slowly, since the seeds have a strong, slightly bitter flavor that takes some getting used to. A small pinch ground into a soup or stew is a reasonable place to begin. You do everything right. You eat clean, you take your pills, and the next morning that number is still too high. I know that frustration. I lived it for years. They never tell you about the morning rise, your sugar climbing while you sleep, no matter what you did the day before. You wake up, you test, and it feels like the work didn't count, like you're stuck depending on more and getting nowhere. I was done feeling powerless. I didn't want to throw out my doctor's plan. I wanted something natural and simple I could add to it, something that finally moved that morning number. I'll walk you through what changed it for me. and the natural support I add every day is in the free presentation linked below. If I had to choose just one to start with, I'd start with cinnamon, added daily, stirred into oatmeal, coffee, or even a glass of warm water in the evening. It's the most researched of the three, the easiest to find, and the easiest to work into a routine you'll actually stick with. But the real payoff comes from stacking it with two other pieces. The first is timing it around dinner rather than just breakfast, since your evening meal has the most direct influence on how much glucose is available for that overnight liver release. The second is pairing it with a source of fiber at the same meal, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, because fiber and cinnamon appear to work on the same problem from two angles. Fiber slows the sugar getting into your blood, and cinnamon appears to help your cells use what does get in more efficiently. I think about a man named Bernard, 76, spent his working years as a postal carrier, walking routes for over 30 years before he retired. He told me he'd tried nearly every diabetic-friendly recipe he could find online and still watched his fasting number sit stubbornly in the 160s most mornings. He started adding cinnamon to his coffee every single day. Nothing else changed at first. 6 weeks in, he told me, very matter of fact, that his mornings felt a little less like rolling dice. Not cured, less like rolling dice. I share his story not as proof that a spice fixes anything on its own, but because it's possible to feel less powerless standing in your own kitchen. What made the difference for Bernard, he told me, wasn't just the cinnamon itself. It was that it was the first thing in years that he actually stuck with every single day without fail. He'd tried supplements before and diets before and always fell off after a week or two. Cinnamon in his coffee took him 10 seconds and required zero willpower because it was already something he was doing anyway. That's worth thinking about. The habits that last aren't always the most powerful ones on paper. They're the ones simple enough that you actually keep doing them past the first excited week. I'd also tell you not to expect an overnight change with any of these three. The research behind cinnamon, turmeric, and fenugreek all measured results over weeks, not days. 6 weeks, 9 months, in some cases longer. That's a realistic timeline to hold in your head. If you try one of these for 3 days and don't see a different number, that's not proof it doesn't work. It's proof you haven't given your body enough time yet to respond to a consistent, small daily input. I want you to understand what that feeling actually is because I live it now. I season my food the way I always wanted to. I don't flinch reaching for the cinnamon jar. And at 83, I've still got the energy most mornings to work in my garden before the sun gets too high. That's not nothing to me, because underneath the frustration of a fasting number that won't budge is something heavier. The fear that your body has simply stopped responding, that you're doing everything right and it doesn't matter anymore. I've sat with that fear. I know plenty of you watching have too. I want you to hear me say clearly, the number moving is not about being perfect. It's about giving your body small, consistent, researched tools to work with in the hours you're not even watching. There's also something quieter underneath all of this that I don't think gets said enough. The loneliness of managing a condition like this, year after year, sometimes without anyone around who really understands what it's like. Spices in your cabinet won't fix that loneliness. But there is something to be said for a small daily ritual, a spoon of cinnamon in your coffee, a pinch of turmeric in your dinner, that reminds you every single day that you're still someone who takes care of yourself. That matters more than people give it credit for. Please talk with your doctor before adding any spice supplement in a concentrated form, especially if you're on blood sugar medication. Some of these can interact with certain prescriptions, and this should always work alongside your treatment plan, never in place of it. A simple daily amount in your food is one thing. A concentrated capsule or extract is a different conversation entirely, and your doctor is the right person to have it with, especially if you're already on medication that affects your blood sugar or your blood thinning. Drop your morning number in the comments. I want to know where you're starting, and I promise you there are people reading this who are exactly where you are. And if this gave you a new way to think about your spice rack, subscribe, because there's a lot more of this ahead. If you watched this whole thing, you're not the type who gives up. You're the type who keeps looking for a real answer. So let me be straight with you. The morning number isn't your fault, and it isn't just diabetes. It's the dawn rise, and it responds to the right daily habits. The goal was never to quit your treatment. It was to support it naturally so you finally see that number move and feel in control again. Alongside the steps I showed you, I take a simple, natural support every day to help keep my blood sugar in a healthy range. Affordable, easy, and it works with my doctor's plan, not against it. The free presentation is in the description below. Go see it for yourself. And keep your doctor in the loop. This is support, not a replacement.